there is a global satanic religion that does operate aspects of cults around the world. Whether you think that like Hillary Clinton is literally in it or not is a whole different like level of conspiracy. But like
a global satanic religion?
Oh yeah, dude. Have you gone down the satanic ritual abuse rabbit hole? It is so dark. So what I'm referring to specifically are survivors giving survivor testimony on video, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them. Like not like one guy came forward and said this, like there are whole support networks for these people. Like there are psychologists that specialize in satanic SRA victims, satanic ritual abuse. And because you have to like treat them in a whole different way than a regular abuse victim, because the level of depravity and disgusting, like literal torture of children, like literal, so your episode is so screwed now, but there's one in particular that this guy was on the Alondra Markman podcast, and I wish I could remember his name, and we don't even want to pull it up because it's so dark. And everyone should, watch it for themselves and judge it for themselves in terms of whether you think he's telling the truth or not. But personally, it's like you can look into his life, and this guy, like his whole life is based around him recovering from this essentially story of his childhood and abuse, and it looks pretty looked far more likely that he's telling mostly the truth than entirely lies to me. And what he alleges in this interview that aired like a year ago or so, a little less, on Alondra Markman's podcast, is that he was born into a satanic family, of which there are many around the world, and that he was groomed from an early age to essentially be a Jeffrey Epstein type of character in a global satanic cult that is not all satanic, but the Satanists are a part of this sort of bigger network of crime and everything. And he alleges that he was...
I'm curious how they define themselves, Satanists. Like, what is the definition of a Satanist to them?
My understanding is that some of them, based on what he said, is that some of them are literally worshiping Satan, and some of them are practicing these things in this cult format and structure. And when I tell you what he's alleging, you'll realize that are so like in the same way that like some Jews are really practicing Jewish people, and some Jewish people are. And I don't mean to say, I'm not trying to make that connection. I'm just saying that we were just talking about Jews. Some people are more practicing of a religion than others, but you might still go to church, and you might still, you might identify as Christian, but you're not as Christian as the next guy. But he alleges that he was groomed from an early age, tortured every day as a child, like sexually abused every day as a child, to be groomed to have multiple personalities. And then by the time he was like a preteen, he was engaging in child death matches where he would be put in a cage and he would fight to the death with another child in like downtown New York in underground like parties that rich people and businessmen would attend. And then that and it sounds so insane, but when you watch it, it's like hard, and it's not like he's the only one that has claimed this. He's just one that put it all in a particularly, like lots of people have lots of claims about this kind of shit. And he also claims that then after that, he was being groomed to be an actor, and he froze up in his acting interview. And so he got shifted from the acting pathway, because these guys, like there's a fuckload of money in this community, allegedly, as in, it's tied into all of the global sex trafficking networks, because how do you think that global sex trafficking sort of gets all the handlers and gets all of the sort of like operatives that run it? Is you need people that were abused in order to run these things, because you need to be that kind of broken, like you need to be groomed to be able to run this without breaking it all.
Yeah, is this all like tied into like the Franklin scandal?
Similar, yeah. So he claims he met Jeffrey Epstein on 2 occasions. He claims that he was being groomed to essentially be a handler similar to Jeffrey Epstein. And he had a really lucid description that Jeffrey Epstein was an insanely good code switcher, is what made Jeffrey unique, that he could be completely normal businessman, like banker guy right now, and then like literally turn the other way and be an absolute depraved, abusive monster, and then like right back on like the drop of a pin. And that's what made him so unique in this guy's perspective. And he kind of like had his programming, his like trauma did not work correctly. And so rather than going that route, he became a breeder. And he alleges that he was sent to a compound in Mexico where he would breed with trafficked girls all day, every single day, for like 2 or 3 years. And they would just breed and breed and breed and breed. And he alleges that is because they were particularly interested in him because of his bloodline and his heritage as some sort of direct descendant of King Solomon, is what he says. And it's like,
who's this dude? What's this dude's name again?
I don't remember his name. I remember that he was on the Alondra Markman podcast, and she is a survivor of satanic ritual abuse as well.
Is she Anik Lucas?
Yes, Anik Lucas.
Annika Lucas.
Okay, so
This is what.
Okay,
pulled
so
up.
Alondra Markman is his name, and Annika Lucas is her name. She's the one hosting the podcast, and that's
he's the guy.
podcast.
He's the descendant of who?
So what he says in there is that they were interested in him because he has something like 97% Ashkenazi Jewish heritage or something like that, and is allegedly a direct descendant of King Solomon's bloodline. He doesn't say whether he knows that's true or not or anything. He just says that he was under the impression that that was why he got selected for the breeding program specifically. And
Does he have any proof of this?
not really, no. And so that's why I say like you should, and first, you should not watch it if you are at all sensitive in any way. And you should only watch it when you are of like a sound heart and ready to like hear some of the most dark and fucked up things you've ever heard in your life. But I
can't believe it's not like fully fucking shadow banned.
I mean, it kind of is, but not really. Yeah,
this one
there.
just came out 3 days ago.
I think that the reason it's not is because it's so unbelievable. And he's not the only one. There's so many people that have made claims like this.
It's not even, go back, hover your mouse over it, see it plays the preview, and you hover your mouse over it. That means it's not even demonetized. That's insane.
Is it possible that it's not monetized in the first place, that she doesn't even monetize her channel?
Well, it still
That's
wouldn't
possible,
show
sure.
it if you searched, right?
But when you demonetize stuff, when
I don't really know how it works.
So when
That one's
YouTube
not
demonetizes a video and you hover over the thumbnail, it'll just show a play button.
Oh,
it
interesting.
won't show you a preview.
Good to know. So I did a little bit of digging into him because
was
I
demonetized.
had the same take on it as this is so unbelievable. I got to look into this guy. And what I found is that he would have to be like an entirely fake person who is actively, his life is dedicated to pushing this narrative. Because in the sense that he has history going back to therapy, he's known her personally, like she's putting her whole like life on the line for having known him. He's been on lots of interviews and podcasts. He's like his whole sort of background, like there is lots of records of who he is and the fact that he has been talking about this his entire life since exiting the cult, so to speak. And I think that everyone should make their own judgment of whether he's honest or not and what's going on. And my perspective is not that I know he is for sure telling the truth. My perspective is just that he is a data point among many that all point towards this is at least a factor in our world.
Go back. This is Alondra's. Go to that page you were just on.
Maybe it says the same page.
That's him. That's like his current life. That's
Welcome
what he does
chaos.
now.
Ah, friend, I've been expecting you. Sweet disorder to my order. It's hellish being a complex life form. Hellish and sweet. Come lust become.
Some lust
becomes love. Other lust returns to the earth. Swear to me that you'll complicate my life, and I'll reason with elegant simplicity that I can handle it.
I think it's a poem. He's got
So
poetry
yeah, you've got to
here.
realize that this, if he's telling the truth, this is one of the most broken and then rebuilt human beings you have ever encountered in your life.
Mm-hmm.
He alleges that he murdered countless children as a child.
He says this?
Yeah. Because he was child death cage matches, like where rich people would pay to come into these underground fight matches in New York City, in the underground, in secret locations, and pay to watch children fight to the death.
Who the fuck would want to pay to watch that?
Well, think about Jeffrey Epstein's clientele, right? We know that that's real.
You think
right?
Bill Clinton wanted to pay to watch it?
No.
Okay.
I'm just saying, like, think this through as a thought experiment.
Okay.
If you have everything in the world and like lust and power, like addictions, anyone who's ever experienced any form of addiction, whether it's like to alcohol or to Adderall or to like porn or heroin, all those addictions kind of play on this sort of like this feeling, this like desire of like, oh, that just felt so good. And like whatever else is wrong in the world, like that's not wrong. And that's good. And they all kind of play on these same things. And powerful people, power, money, that lust for power, when turned towards the lusting and the greed, the darker side of power and money is inevitably an addiction as well in a lot of ways. And not everyone who's powerful and rich goes down that road, but clearly like the Epstein clients do, like clearly they want children, like they want to do, and there are snuff films, like people pay on the internet right now to watch murder, like to watch these kinds of things, because there's inherently a devil in everyone. I think the way I see it is that there's an angel and a devil in all of us, and you can feed the good wolf or the bad wolf, and some people get addicted to feeding the bad wolf. And a lot of times in a capitalist society that incentivizes greed and lust. Like it incentivizes a lot of their worst behaviors. That means that a lot of the worst people will rise to the top of that system. And when you have people that are, I mean, you know, if you have 1,000 people that rise to the top of the capitalistic system in a room, one of them is probably going to be fucking evil, right? At least one. And you only need one billionaire or millionaire to be super evil that suddenly there's a market for some really evil shit, right? Right? Because they have all the money in the world and they'll pay for it, right? What is the point of having all that money if you're not going to pay for whatever you desire? And so in a world this big, with this many rich people, with this much corruption, with this much evil in it, with people like Jeffrey Epstein in it, I think, yeah, there's totally a bunch of fucking people that will pay for some horrible shit.
Yeah.
Including the president of the United States, Bill Clinton.
Right.
And I'm not saying he necessarily went and watched child cage matches, but Alondra Markman alleges that he was a fighter in child death cage matches. And he directly alleges that he saw more, I forget his exact words, but it was like, I saw world leaders from other countries that you might not recognize, but they're definitely like he alleges that he saw some very powerful people at those events.
Does he name any of them?
No, he talks it through actually in a way that kind of actually to me added credibility in the sense of like, he's like, I'm not going to say those names because I think they're still alive. They're still out there. But he names a few people that he's like, I'm pretty sure that guy's dead. And that guy's like, I'm not really worried about that name because it's a pseudonym I know. And like, it's not going to, but he doesn't really, he's thoughtful about if his story was true, he's presenting it in a way that would kind of be like, that's the problem. Is like it's kind of unprovable because he's not gonna be like, this is the guy's name and he lives at that address and that's where it was, because like then he's clearly gonna die if he's telling the truth. Yeah. But also if he's not telling the truth, then it's like
it's a crazy fucking conspiracy.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are just really fucking full of shit. And unless you have some sort of evidence or some sort of corroboration to your story, I mean, a lot of people felt like that with the Epstein thing when it first happened, and then everything started coming out, and then nobody denies that unless you're like got your head buried in the sand.
That's where
when it comes to a guy like this, it's just like,
well, everyone should draw their own. Yeah, everyone should draw their own conclusions. But I'm starting to come to the point where we've been lied to about so much, and every single time it's like, that could never be true. And it used to be like, oh, the CIA would never influence journalists. And oh boy, how far we have come from Operation Mockingbird. And it used to be like offensive that the CIA would ever influence the free press. And now it's like, bro, we have fucking like a child sexual blackmail ring targeting the president of the United States and succeeding. So that's where I start to lean towards, if I'm not sure, my bias is to lean towards the little guy that is telling on government and telling on corruption is more likely than not telling the truth. And that's not to say I believe him 100%. It's just to say that on balance, I'm more likely to believe the regular person who's putting their life out there just being like, the CIA wronged me, this government is doing this thing. And it's not always true by any means. But I tend to sort of lean towards like, I would rather believe that person and look for more evidence and kind of like, yeah, and this is one where there's just so many versions of that story out there.
Like, from my experience, I get like a dozen of those guys emailing me every week.
I do too, actually. Yeah, I do too. And I would argue you don't get guys like that. It's hard to say. I mean, you should watch it at some point when you got the time for it. Because his body language, obviously you can't tell for sure from it. But that's where I start to like look at the Finders cult, look at the NXIVM cult, look at Jeffrey Epstein, look at the
NXIVM thing's fucking
it's crazy, dude. Who's the the guy that ran Virgin Mobile or whatever it was, Virgin Galactic? No,
Richard Branson.
Richard Branson. There's a lot of darker people than just Jeffrey Epstein that have been caught. Am I confusing Branson with the other guy? Who was the billionaire that owned all the islands that was on camera talking about how he like wanted to breed with the black women because they had such good genetics?
I don't know.
Oh man, I forget. I think that's who it was.
You think Richard Branson, he owned Virgin. He owns Virgin Airlines, Virgin Mobile.
I could be confusing him though with one of the other old white-haired tech billionaires. But there's just like...
Sounds on par, though.
Yeah, there's a lot of just... There's starting to be more and more and more overwhelming evidence that Satanism I mean, hey, let's rewind. Anton LaVey, do you know who that is?
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So like we know that Satanism is a religion. Like we know that it does exist.
It's a ridiculous religion.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not based on anything. It's not based on anything. It was like, it's been fabricated.
I would argue you're probably correct in some ways, but also it's
And
like
at the end of the day, it's fucking religious. Like you're fucking, like that's not what it means. Like that's not what Satan really was according to Christians or according
Yeah.
to Catholics or according to any ancient texts.
yeah. In the same way that like these days, a lot of religious institutions are actually just people kind of perverting concepts and using
Yeah.
them to manipulate people to do things.
Right.
I would argue that that is textbook what Homeboy is alleging in that interview is like, and it's the same thing with like any religious institution is like, yeah, there's like the belief, the word of God, the actual spiritual structure of a religion that I think is super valuable for humans to have, super valuable for us to have. But then there's the side of like, okay, now let's institutionalize it and control it and like give it back to you in this new way.